All right, guys, just want to welcome back to the Everything College Football podcast. Today, I'll be doing a preview and prediction for Week 9 contest between Kansas State and Kansas going down in Lawrence. 2.5 point favorites are the home team. 54.5 is the total. 12 p.m. Eastern time on TNT. Getting started with the KSU offense on that KU defense. 29.4 points per game for the Wildcats. It's been a bit of a disappointing year for this group. They started off the year on as low of a note as you can, starting 1-3. The only loss was a 3-point victory, come from behind against North Dakota. I mean, just as ugly as as you can get, really. Bounced back against UCF for a W. At Baylor, they lost by a point, but showed a lot of life. It was their best offensive showing of the year, 500 plus yards. And then they beat TCU, a team that also can bring a lot of offense to the table, and they were able to outduel them in that regard. So this is a group that's gotten things going over the last couple of weeks. Dylan Edwards, they missed him significantly, obviously, in the first part of the year. That ankle injury he suffered in Dublin, didn't play during really that entire first 4 game stretch. Came back against UCF, put on a show for 166 yards, lacked efficiency against Baylor, didn't play against TCU. So they're hoping he can be healthy and ready to go for this game. It's a guy that's obviously been battling health, and his explosiveness has been missed in this rushing attack for sure. I think this offense could be a lot better if he was there. Last year with DJ Giddens, this was a run game that had explosiveness and toughness. That's what he brought to the table, both of those things. So we'll see if he's ready to go for this game. Hopefully so. I think that as the weeks have went on, Joe Jackson's done a pretty respectable job of taking over at running back. He did great against TCU, was good against Baylor. But other than that, he wasn't very good during that tough stretch to start the year. But the bye week really helped, I think, get things back on track. 1-2 during that stretch. And again, the Baylor game was close. Avery Johnson, though, this is a guy who is working on progressing. He's still not fully there. I think he's also starting to accomplish a little bit more in the pass game. When it comes to his accuracy, it's still spotty, but he was able to make a lot of plays against TCU. This is a guy that can throw the football downfield to some of his weapons. He can do a lot of things with his legs. Has been at times pretty good when it comes to running the football, but not as much against TCU. But was fine because they didn't really need him. But Johnson, this is a dual threat quarterback. His decision making has been questioned at times, and it still is. But 2 interceptions overall, 63% comp rate, so he's doing a good job of protecting the football. He has a nice receiving duo of Jace Brown and Jerron Tibbs. Tibbs more of a possession guy, but Brown is going to be your deep threat. They also have Garrett Oakley at tight end, who's having a breakout season like I envisioned he probably would at some point. He's doing great things for this offense. Jerron Bradley is a very talented pass catcher. 6'5", 223 pounds. They want to get him involved in the red zone as much as possible. So I think it's a respectable receiving group, but when it comes to just trying to survive in straight drop back passing and no assistance from the run game, it can be problematic for Kansas State, and I think that's why you've seen them have so many problems on offense to begin the season. You're going up against the Kansas defense that they've been respectable this year, giving about 24 points per game. Ever since they entered conference play, though, it's really been a struggle, really, since that Missouri game where they got torched through the air. Cincinnati had a field day with them, too, in a game that they were up double digits in. They also manufactured a lot of offense. Against Texas Tech. They got annihilated on the ground. And this is a very good defensive line for Kansas. It's probably the strongest part of their defense, but they gave up 372, almost 10 yards per carry, 200 to UCF, another 200 to Cincinnati, 261 to Missouri. I mean, it's just a terrible run defense for Kansas. And even if Edwards doesn't play, they might still be at a disadvantage because Avery Johnson, being that extra runner, is going to give them a lot to think about. And it's really been disappointing because I do think this is a good Kansas defensive line. They got plenty of bodies, a nice surplus led by DJ Withers and Justice Finkley. Tommy Dunn Jr. is a nice veteran. Dean Miller, a respectable edge player. And these guys are just not getting great penetration against the run. It's a makeshift linebacking group. 2 transfers they added, Bang Ali Kamara and Trey Latham. These guys are tremendous. Latham, though, has really struggled against the run. He's been a standout in coverage, though. He's just not showcasing that same urge downhill and getting in the lanes. Lyric Rawls at safety. He's been playing a lot of box for them, and he's not been as good either against the run. So it just seems like it's going to be a big disadvantage for them if Edwards plays even worse in the secondary. Austin Alexander, DJ Graham, 2 solid corners. I think Jalen Todd's pretty solid as well. The pass defense has not been that bad for Kansas other than those games that I alluded to earlier where they had some issues. In terms of straight up matchups, I think the corners can hold up in man-to-man coverage, but I just don't know if they have enough to be able to contain the speed of the aforementioned Jace Brown. Taylor Davis, he splits time with Rawls at safety. Not sure if they have enough skill to cover him. And I think in the slot, Seed Gibbs, It's been a big struggle area for them as well. So this is a Kansas defense that breaking in a lot of new pieces, especially in the back end. It's just not went very well for them. Because it really is. It is a deep defensive line for Kansas, and I think their fans would admit that too. And for them to look like that against Texas Tech, on the road, it's pretty brutal. Cincinnati is a team that has a dual threat quarterback. Brendan Sorsby is, of course, a lot better, I'd say, than Avery Johnson by far. But it's a similar type of skill set, right? They have weapons that can hurt you downfield, and he can burn you with his legs. So trying to contain that dual threat nature, it's going to be tough for Kansas State. This is an offensive line that's been pretty good this year in pass protection. John Pastore at left tackle is going to be your standout. He's been really good this year. Taylor Portier left guard's playing some good football. Sam Hecht at center is filling in as a first-year starter. He's been great at that position. And, Kansas, they're going to be trying to find some pass rush. And Leroy Harris with 4.5 sacks has been good for them in that regard. I think they've done well during, the last 5 games. They had some pressure against Missouri and West Virginia in a blowout loss there. It's been very inconsistent, though, across the board. So I don't really know if they're going to be able to generate much pass rush here in terms of slowing them down. I really don't know where they're going to fit in at because this has just not been a very good defense at all. 2 of the last 3 games have been, tough for this unit. So I think for Kansas State, this is a unit that's got a lot of momentum coming into this one. They're playing a lot better, more efficient through the air. I think their run game will eventually get something going as well. And I'm still iffy on them because I'm not sure if Edwards is playing or not. Moving to the other side of things, the Kansas offense against that KSU defense. It's been a good unit. Their quarterback, Jalen Daniels, has been levels above where we've seen him in the past. It's a guy that just really never developed, and he kind of fell off a lot of people's radars because his game really wasn't taken to the next level. But this year, he's playing great. 70% completion rating, only 2 interceptions, hasn't had one in the last 4 games, was great against Cincinnati, 445 yards on 19 completions. That's great effectiveness. Had a pretty good game against Texas Tech and then against UCF as well. He was able to do similar things that he typically does. In terms of being effective on the ground, that's something he's very skilled at. Hasn't had a touchdown, though, since the Missouri game. Was unable to get free in that one all the way back in like week 3 or 2 or whatever. Against Cincinnati, he was able to pick up a couple of first downs, and that's what you want with Daniels in his legs. If he can get you 50 rushing yards a game, you're going to be doing pretty good when it comes to making things happen on offense. The run game overall, though, has just not been very impressive for Kansas, which is shocking. The first couple weeks of the year, it seemed like they were going to have a very balanced approach. With 200-plus yards against Fresno and Wagner, and then they really fell off. Missouri was a terrible game for them. West Virginia was great. They had almost 250 rushing, but since then they have not been very good. I mean, they had some explosives against Cincinnati, but the last 2 weeks it's not been all that ideal for them. LaShawn Williams leads the way, 5 touchdowns, 309 yards. Daniel Highshaw not really getting the usage I thought he would. He did get hurt. The middle part of the season. So that certainly kind of derailed any momentum he had, which was being the running back 1 for this offense. They went out and got some really good receivers. Last year I thought they had a great group of pass catchers, but this year they're even better. Emmanuel Henderson transferring in from Alabama as a former high-ranked recruit. He's been phenomenal, 530 yards. He's 190 pounds of great speed. He can really high point the football as well. Had 200 yards against Cincy in that one, including like a 95-plus yard touchdown. Something crazy of 90-plus yards early on in that game. And he's going to be a focal point for this offense. He's got very impressive traits. Cam Pickett as well, very good out of the slot. He hasn't been, early on in the season as consistent as we would have liked, but over the last couple of weeks, he's been a focal point for this offense. I think Pickett needs to get more touches. Bowden Groen at tight end. Emerging out of nowhere, 310 yards, 3 touchdowns on 25 receptions, including 13 grabs against Texas Tech for 76 yards. They had a lot of checkdowns in that one against a very tough defense, and he had a big play against UCF in Cincy, a couple of them the week earlier as well. So I think this is a very good group for Kansas. I think they have enough weapons here to get things done. The Jayhawks also have an offensive line that it'll be interesting to see how they match up in this one. Kansas State, their defense also started the year quite poor. Their defensive line really underwhelming. Cody Stufflebean not really stepping up. Chibidi Obizor as well. Damian Alejo, he's a guy that's got a lot of size on the interior. Toby Uzasanimi, he's great. Uso Samalo, some pretty good defensive linemen, right? So they should be doing a lot better here in terms of consistency. And, their run defense has also kind of been shaky against Arizona and UCF. It wasn't great, but they dominated Baylor and TCU, 2 teams that can hurt you on the ground. And even Army, it took them 70 attempts to get to 237 yards. So in terms of efficiency, they've actually been pretty good more often than not this year. Just a couple of hiccups, though, throughout the season. I think the linebackers are a big reason for that. Austin Romaine is tremendous. Also have Desmond Purnell in the middle of this defense. These guys are tremendous against the run. Romaine is really good in coverage as well. Efficiency in terms of tackling has been a little bit less shaky, and if Daniels is going to be in open space, that could be problematic for him. But Kansas State, they're also starting to really bounce back on defense. They weren't great against Baylor, but they still gave up 345 yards passing in that one, and they had a chance to win it and couldn't get a stop. That's no slouch. That's a very good Baylor offense, especially going on the road. TCU was able to rattle up 376, but they made a lot of plays in that game. It's also another tough passing attack. And of course, they forced a couple of turnovers as well. 3 of them overall against TCU and 2 against Baylor. Kansas, they're going to have to protect the football. They don't want to put their defense in bad situations. But this is a secondary, I think, that you could attack in the slot. Kua Moss has been respectable. I think he's a good player overall at corner. They've been reckoning some new guys this year. Jashawn Rich, Donovan, McIntosh. McIntosh is very good against the run. Hasn't missed a tackle all year. Justice Clemens, he's more of a weak link. He'll get on the field at corner as well. And then at safety, Gunnar Maldonado and VJ Payne. Maldonado's really not having the year I thought he would, but Payne, on the other hand, he's been the best player in this secondary by a pretty wide margin. So I think it's a respectable group when it comes to making plays in the box. They got guys that can do that, but in coverage, they've been allowing some explosives this year. I think they can be competitive, but I think that Kansas will also be able to do quite well through the air. Moving to the final thoughts on the prediction, Kansas State has won 16 in a row, and Kansas has had plenty of opportunities to win games at times. They've just not been able to do it, and now you're going to be going into this game as favorites against your rival. And I think for KSU, this is a team that's playing with a lot of momentum. They started off the year on a pretty poor note. The bye week helped them regroup, and they're playing a lot better football. They got another off week to get prepared and continue to improve on some of the weaknesses, and I think that's going to pay dividends for them ultimately. I think Avery Johnson in this passing attack are going to be able to make big plays. I think regardless of who the running back is going to be able to make things happen to keep them ahead of the sticks. I just don't see Kansas generating many negative plays, and if Edwards plays at running back, it's going to be even tougher for them. I think they have a good enough offense led by a nice group of pass catchers and an efficient quarterback to keep it close. And of course, these games usually always do come down to the wire. But I'm going to take the road dog, like plus 120 on the money line, Kansas State to continue its win streak here in Lawrence. It's going to be a very interesting game, though, overall. It's going to be for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.